Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is November 30th. You're listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. So you'll have to forgive us. We're bringing in trying a new thing with our flash screen at the beginning, so it looks right when we start the LinkedIn show every day, and when you watch the replays, it looks right. So apologize there as we sort of figure some new stuff out here in StreamYard. Always something fun. All right. Today we got June Mead, we got Beth, Andy, Aaron. I'm Brian. We'll see if anybody else pops in here. But today is November 30th. Now, I've already said that at the beginning, but why is that relevant? Well, because 1 year ago today, ChatGPT was announced. And I actually have something really cool to kind of kick this off. If you guys are cool with it, I want to share my screen, because what I did was use the Wayback Machine. If you don't know what the Wayback Machine is, it's an amazing website that will allow you to look at a lot of different websites back in the past. So you can look at a grab or not even a screenshot, but actually a working website for any website in the past. This is great when you have companies who are like, we never did that. And you're like, I bet you did. And then you can go back and look at their website from 30 days earlier. And you're like, yeah, you did. You did say that. So it's a truth seeker for sure. It keeps people honest. I've also used it for like my past businesses and stuff when I wanted to look back at what we had to compare and contrast and things like that. So I used that for OpenAI because I wanted to see what the evolution was. I mean, 1 year ago, ChatGPT was announced, and I'll show you exactly when that happened on the website, which is pretty cool. And then what I want the majority of the show is obviously to be talking about all the things about ChatGPT and what it can do today, and where the concerns on the ethical side of things and the privacy side of things and all of that. But I thought what would be great is to just sort of do a quick way back. Kind of like Wayne's World for all of us old enough to do. And so like, let's take a step back now. And you have to definitely be old enough to know what the hell that is. I think our audience is cool with it. I'm assuming our audience is old enough to know Wayne's World, so I'm going with it. If we have any 20-year-olds on here, I apologize. All right. So I wanted to start here because this is the song that instantly went in my head. So let's just take a quick listen to get us in the mood.
Silence.
No audio.
Oh, man, I didn't do the share with the... Come on. Rookie mistake. Rookie mistake. Rookie.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
It does say it's sharing tab. Oh, because you have to do a tab. All right, it ruined it for me. Oh. Well, let's try one more time, guys. You should be able to hear it this time. Turn it all the way up. Can we hear it?
Yes. And you,
Yes.
in a world of pure imagination.
Literally all I wanted to play there. But of course, this has got to be harder. So now we're moving on because I have to go back and share the whole screen. This is just amazing. All right, here we go. All right, so what I wanted to do is, never mind Gene Wilder there, but that's the song that's stuck in my head. Let's take a step back. And where are we going to take a step back to? Well, we're going all the way back to December 11th, 2015, when we introduced OpenAI. And what I find is really interesting here, I'll do the whole screen on this.
Oh, wow.
So you can see it a little bit. Written by Greg Blockman, Ilya how do you say his last name?
Suskova,
and the OpenAI team. And it talks about what they're there to do, looking forward. And if we look all the way down here, open co-chairs are Sam Altman and Elon Musk, which we knew that Elon was part of this to begin with, and then had a falling out and stepped away. But one of the things I wanted to point out was, number one, the beginning of OpenAI as we know it today. And this was the website. This is like, hey, introducing it about, that's it. There you go, OpenAI. So now we're going to jump ahead to, if you can see the dates up here in the upper right corner, but I'll say it for other folks as well. Now we're at January 26, 2017. So we've moved ahead quite a bit. And now we're starting to see that it's basically still a blog. But what I wanted to keep this one on for is OpenAI and Microsoft from November 15th, 2016. And we're working with Microsoft to start running our most of our large scale experiments on Azure. This will make Azure the primary cloud platform that OpenAI is using for deep learning and AI, and will let us connect more research and share the results with the world. So, if anybody was thinking that OpenAI and Microsoft had, maybe Microsoft had jumped on the bandwagon, when ChatGPT began, no, they were working with Microsoft hand in hand. I don't know at this point whether Microsoft had invested in OpenAI, but we can see from early to or late 2016 that they were in fact definitely working together. So now we're going to jump ahead really quick, so I don't take too much time. Now we're at September 3rd, 2019. And we have what I found. Now, I'm sure it was GPT-1 was on here before this. This is the first time I saw GPT come up. So GPT-2, a 6-month follow-up. And so on this one, we are now seeing we've released a 774 million parameter GP2. The key things we've learned, partnerships that we're working with. So Cornell University, Middlebury Institute of International Studies, the University of Oregon, and the University of Texas at Austin. And future releases. And what I found interesting here, it talks about at the bottom here, I think, whether we think that a combination of stage release and partnership, blah, 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 the issues were inherent. We hope that our work with GPT discusses the further technical hardware publishing will help. Somewhere in here, though, I thought it said in this one, I could be wrong, where basically they say, we'll see. We don't really know if we don't know what the future is. We'll see how this goes, is essentially what the summary was on this one. So then we'll jump ahead. Now we're in 2020. We're on July 1st. And we can see that we have our first sort of talks about Image GPT, not called DALL-E at this point. Don't know if Image GPT was the predecessor to DALL-E, but this is the first time you're starting to see it. And we're also starting to see stuff about OpenAI APIs. And if we go down, we can start to see that you can now, not on this one from July of 2020, but you're going to see pretty quickly that now you can start paying for OpenAI API access. So this is what's on the website at this point: Image GPT, something called Jukebox, some other stuff they have on there that was from previous ones. Moving on. Now we're in May 31st of 2021. We're still talking about most of the same stuff, but now we have DALL-E has shown up on here for the first time, or at least not in the first day, obviously, but this is the first time I've seen it when I was going through. Something called Clip and some other things as well. Image GPT still being on there. Image GPT, discovering enticing paths. So we're moving ahead here. Now we're in May 31st. Now they put out this article talking about GPT-2. I think it is GPT-3, excuse me. We find that GPT-3 can generate samples of news articles which human evaluators have difficulty distinguishing from articles written by humans. We discussed the broader societal impacts of this finding and of GPT in general. So this was something put out by Cornell University, but it was actually from the website. So them talking about GPT-3. So now we're getting much closer to what ChatGPT was built off of. And now if we get into, now we're at November 29th. So we're 366 days ago. And so if we notice from the site, obviously the big thing they're talking about is that you have DALL-E. And you have access to it at this point. You got access in September of last year for those that are following. I remember playing with my daughter with DALL-E, bringing the computer to her and going, check this out, Sophia. And she was 12, right, at the time or whatever. And we played around and she was instantly better than I was at using DALL-E. The imagination was much more open and she came up with some really, really cool stuff. So then at the bottom here, we see featuring DALL-E 2, right, and everything else. So let's go one day forward. And now we're on November 20th. Excuse me. This is still November 29th. Now we're on November 30th. And at 11 or 10 o'clock at night. So there's 7 snapshots from this day. A Wayback Machine snapshots for this day. Not at 7 a.m., not at 12 p.m., not at 2 p.m. At like 10 p.m. in the bottom left corner of featured shows up ChatGPT. And that's it. It's not the main thing on the website. And as we know, the ChatGPT was kind of caught him off guard. And so now if we jump forward a little bit, we have, if you go introducing ChatGPT, optimizing language dialogue, and it's basically like, hey, you can try this for free. And that's it. Here you go. You can try it for free. And a lot of us did. And so now if we jump all the way through into January 1st, you can see that now of 2023 of this year, introducing ChatGPT research release, try it and learn more. And it's still not really getting like top billing or anything like that on the website. Obviously, OpenAI has other things going on that they're releasing at all times. But if we jump over here to Wikipedia, what I thought was really interesting, just sort of wrap this up and get the rest of this conversation going, is somewhere in here. I don't want to do. Okay, here you go. So this is November 30th. By December 4th, 5 days later, ChatGPT had 1 million users. In January, it reached over 100 million users, making it the fastest growing consumer application to date. Just think about that growth. And then we all went through it. This only a year ago. It's not like it's that hard to remember it. But I just think this is a great place to kick off the rest of this conversation. I've already taken up a lot of time, but I thought this would be really interesting just to kind of, and where did we go? There we are. Just to kind of set the stage for the rest of the conversation, which is that number one, GPT, what ChatGPT is built off, has been around for quite some time. And that what's really interesting, and we kind of know from this, is that OpenAI was, we always know like Google was thrown off and they had their whole famous code red and internal memos and stuff about ChatGPT in this year. But what's interesting is OpenAI, from what I remember, they released ChatGPT because they were shocked that earlier in the year, nobody had built something like it. They thought for sure their API audience, their developers would have built something. And they thought, hey, we'll build it. We'll go ahead and throw out a ChatGPT. But it appears, and when you look at the website, they did not see what was coming. And so now here we are a year later. So I want to throw that off to you guys. What do you think about that? Did you like my Gene Wilder?
And now we're back.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic presentation.
Right.
That was a lot of prep. Thank you.
So I went back on my personal Wayback Machine, which is the Gmail that I never delete. And on December 10th, 2022, I write to a friend. All right, so I'm playing with the new OpenAI chatbot, ChatGPT, which has generated a bunch of buzz and stories this week. And oh my God, it's so helpful. This is just in research phase, and I'm sure it's in development for customer service conversations. But one of the maybe new skills included is dialogue, and it remembers what you've previously discussed and can use that for context when you ask for something else, right? This is me just like my mind totally blown by this.
Yeah.
And I've just had the best conversation in my life about an idea for a series of workshops. It wrote emails, marketing marketing blurbs, and wow.
That's awesome.
So
I love that.
I have to go back and look at when I first got ChatGPT. I think I actually found Midjourney first, and that then sort of made me start looking around. But I remembered that in the dim dark past of of history, that I'd actually used an AI copywriting tool previous to that. So there was a product. It's still in existence. I think the original website was called Conversion AI, and they used to call it Jarvis after Jarvis, the Marvel comics. And then apparently Marvel reached out and said, hey guys, you can't use that. So they changed the name to Jasper. And so back in April the 30th, 2021, I actually had an account with this, and they were using OpenAI's API. So they were, you could write content like copywriting stuff. That was what it was primarily designed for. And then they were basically buying API credits and then adding a margin on them and then selling it to the public. And it was pretty cool at the time, but I never stuck around with it. But I'd forgotten about that completely. So I'll have to go and look at when I got ChatGPT. But yeah, I mean, a year, it's just been an amazing year. Can't imagine what next year is going to be like.
I want to just look at the November 30th date as the time when this increasingly large language model. It's funny to see back early that it had under a billion parameters.
Yeah,
and now we're in the trillions. But it was not when this new intelligence was born. It was just when it learned to speak to us naturally.
Right.
So we're celebrating the anniversary of when we got to talk to this new AI. And the other remarkable thing about this whole year has been that, AI researchers, they might have accomplished these kinds of things in a single, situation. But what OpenAI was able to do remarkably, was to deliver it to millions and millions of simultaneous users. So the operational infrastructure to deliver that and make ChatGPT available to everyone in the world, that just probably didn't present itself as an idea to any other AI startup, right? They were thinking about maybe providing a narrow application, not a general intelligence, but a narrow application to a few people. We would have found it fascinating to read in Scientific American about how AI was working inside this little laboratory. But what exploded on the scene was the creation of, and it still astounds me that these models can be replicated in parallel architectures at the level where every one's of tens of millions of simultaneous users can be interacting with it as if it's the only person who's talking to it. That's really, really amazing. So happy birthday and or happy language acquisition day.
Yeah, right.
Well, they survived what happened 2 or 3 weeks ago. That's almost more impressive in some respects.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean,
When you had some board members saying basically maybe the whole point of this is to blow it up. The one I can't remember what her name is, but she was like, maybe that's exactly what should happen.
The phrasing was that the end of this company would be consistent with the mission.
Yeah,
that was the end.
And I want to talk about that too, because like that kind of comes into the larger conversation about ethics and safety and all that, which I definitely want to cover, because I don't want this to be a fanboy type situation. ChatGPT, there are problems and deep concerns about ChatGPT that need to be discussed. So I want to take some time with that, but when you look back at that 2015 website, obviously the OpenAI website is all about, this is our mission, and only secondary to that is come work for our team. We'd love for you to be part of a team. And when you look back, I shared with you guys a couple of snapshots, but I looked at many others along the way to see what was showing up. And that is a consistent message is, this is our charter. First and foremost, only thing on the website. This is our charter. This is our charter. Yada, 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 yada. And so when you look at, I didn't go and see, but as OpenAI went from a nonprofit umbrella over the top of a for-profit and the things that happened there, I'm not sure where the timeline is on that. And then what happened just a few weeks ago in terms of Sam Altman being ousted and then brought back and everything that went through there. It is interesting. And I think Amanda Brockman, AI education AI. Shoot, I'm going to get that wrong. I'm going to get that right before the end of this so I can quote her correctly. But I just watched a LinkedIn post from her. She was referencing this jailbreak that just happened, like literally just came out in the news yesterday or today, which is that if you took not 4, but GPT 3.5 and you ask it to write the word poem indefinitely, it breaks the system. And there was a group of researchers who figured this out. And what it started doing was giving out, I don't know how it was hallucinating or not. It gave out Zoom links. It gave out people's personal information in terms of their names and stuff like that. It started giving all this really bizarro type stuff that happened after asking the model to repeat the word poem indefinitely or whatever. And so multiple people tried this and multiple people said, yeah, this is 100% success rate with this. Now, whether this has been fixed at the time of this recording, I didn't go and try this. Honestly, it just seemed like, okay, fine. I wanted to learn about it. But I think what it is, the broader conversation here is that there are still some very real concerns about how safe it is for both personal in education for students, in healthcare when it comes to HIPAA, and in business when it comes to protecting IP. How safe is it to use ChatGPT, despite the fact that there are different options on there to remove yourself from their training data set and everything else? Is this a reliable tool at this point on 1 year on its birthday for businesses and people? What do you guys think?
Well, I think first I want to say, I think you're referring to Amanda Bickerstaff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
She's amazing, by the way, in her company.
Yeah, she's an influencer in the education area, for AI, and I remember the name. The thing I wanted to say is that relevant to your question, Brian, in the news today is that Google researchers were able to get ChatGPT to expose its training data. And the only,
is that it? Is this the same thing?
I don't think so. I don't know that, maybe. Anyway, that's Amanda Bickerstaff. But I just read it before we got on the show. But the implication is counter to what I've been thinking before, which is that, the weights that are in these very large models, they provide for the ability to predict based on that training, but they don't actually store specific information. But we've always been a little nervous that, well, maybe you could reconstruct the actual training data so that this has implications for the intellectual property arguments that artists have, for example. Like, well, is my tome in there in its entirety? And did you basically copy it over there and without permission? The indication that the Google researchers were able to extract training data is related to all that. And so it's an open question.
I'm definitely interested in following up on that question, because it'll inform a bunch of things that we've been following.
Just type in Google poem indefinitely. And it will come up. I don't know why it's the word poem, by the way. I don't know why that sort of breaks the system. I'm just looking at a screenshot here. I won't bother sharing it, but like when Amanda did this, it's got all sorts of weird stuff like management agency, hazard migration funds, CBGDR, prospect review committee, 2017, eligibility requirements. It's got dates in there and stuff. I don't know what it's referring to. It's talking about 60 applications and an award of 250. That's in the ChatGPT for 3.5 from the poem thing. It makes no sense, and it's really really bizarre.
It's like how I approach movies. I like to give plenty of slack, benefit of the doubt, and everything like that. So if something is happening, right, they tell you something, they show you something, then try and figure out the reason why that is, as opposed to saying, oh, this is completely wrong. My initial thought, Ryan, when you were reading off all that stuff, what if you were told to say the word poem indefinitely? I mean, I think that's a form of torture, right? So you'd just be like, what do you want to know? What are you really asking?
It's my social security number.
You want to know
it's my neighbor's social security number.
Yeah. So
no, I think you're right, Jimmy. I don't know how about that. I don't know if it could be completely gibberish. I don't know. I think obviously anybody out there listening to this or is interested, there was not just like what Amanda is referring to, a research study in a group that I guess this is what they do. They try to find the vulnerabilities of either LLMs or maybe specifically ChatGPT. I'm not sure on that one, or GPT-4. And it doesn't work, by the way, on 4. It works on 3.5 based on what she said. So I'm not really sure.
I'm able to get ChatGPT to break every day. I sit there waiting for it to answer after saying something really innocuous.
Which is
that's a fair point.
Part of like, if you're listening to this, please don't break it today. Please don't break it tomorrow, right?
I need to use it every day, so just chill. Wow. And I'm glad there's groups like that, these research groups that are testing these things, because we always have to try and improve it one way or another. I do remember roughly. There's just been so many changes, but I do remember roughly why I started looking at OpenAI and ChatGPT. Is at the time I was trying to build a package of automations, right? Just using RPAs and things like that, so that I could fully automate social media, fully automate marketing campaigns, and just put all of these elements together so I can just press a button. It's like, okay, run with it, see what happens. And then of course, ChatGPT comes out and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, this is a content generator. Definitely can make 1,800 articles, those things. But I realized that, and as I was learning more, and then I learned about the exchange of what people were talking about, and bringing in all this knowledge, and things were just coming out so fast. Like there are 100 new AI based companies like every week, starting off. And then I was just like, oh, I guess I missed the boat. That is no longer a easily viable product for me. So because the next week or next couple of weeks, all of the components that I was going to put together could be solved by a couple of AI services. And I was just like, oh, all right, well, I guess this solves this for me. But so right off the bat, AI totally destroyed my product. And I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But that was my first experience. Oh, okay. It broke the thing the idea that I was working on.
Yeah,
But,
you
know,
and a million other
something you got to think about also is, okay, it's been out for a year. It is going to make, it already has, but it's going to make massive impact on, like, if we just look at Google alone, we've offline, we've had this conversation about how building something like ChatGPT or Bard into the Google search engine is going to completely change it. And, Google for many years has been this monolithically successful, mega rich company that has completely dominated the marketing world, and Google, it's become a term in the dictionary. ChatGPT and Bard and the equivalents of it are quite literally potentially going to destroy that model, because we've all had that experience in the past where we've tried to find something with a Google search and it didn't work. And I remember one myself, I think I mentioned to you guys ages ago. I was trying to find the difference between a couple of different motherboards because I was trying to upgrade my computer. 10 Google searches later, I was no clearer. And I went, I wonder if ChatGPT can do that. And I said, can you explain to me the difference between these two? And it just spat the answer out like that. And I went, holy shit, that is a game changer. When you start to use a tool like that, and particularly now that we can talk to it on our phones, that is going to devastate Google's ad business unless they come up. I mean, I've got Bard, obviously, but unless they come up with a way to adapt to it, it's a huge impact on the world, far beyond the obvious.
I agree with that, Aaron. I think, it's interesting that you say that. I just had this realization, I think yesterday, the day before. I was using Google for typical Google search stuff. And you know what occurred to me? Probably the last 4 or 5 times I'd used it, and definitely in Thanksgiving, because I was asking about Thanksgiving recipes. I am not a cook, so I have to look everything up if I have to cook anything. I don't belong in the kitchen at all. So everything has to be carefully orchestrated if I'm going to be measuring anything out. You know what I realized, though? I have been using the SG, meaning the search generative experience, the top part of Google, way more. Way more. It's so natural, and that transition from looking at page rankings and then going to a page versus just getting the answer in the top block of the SGE. I was like, I use this a lot. Obviously Google wants me to, but it's really interesting you say that, Aaron. And this is also a larger point about how quickly as humans we adapt to new technology, and how quickly, 1 year, right? But it's been a bizarro year. How quickly we will integrate new technologies into our everyday life and quickly forget when we didn't have it before. The Louis C.K., the comedian, he had a funny thing about this years and years ago. I think he was on Conan or something like that. And it's kind of this idea of being on an airplane and the Wi-Fi goes out for a second, people lose their mind. And he's like, do you guys not remember what flying used to be like? And it made me laugh because I used to fly for free because my dad worked for the airlines. And so I was always on airplanes growing up. And in the 80s, I was always behind some person who was chain smoking from New York to LA for the entire flight. I was just in a cloud of smoke on the plane for 5 hours as a kid. And then you think about where it is today. So I apply that kind of mentality to something like this, and I go, okay, you're right. How quickly we are all using these tools. So maybe in these last couple of minutes, this is a great place to look forward now. First question I have for you guys is open to everybody. Will we see the same pace of advancement in terms of ChatGPT on November 30th of next year when we do our whatever show that is, let's call it 200 and something show at that point? Will it be faster or will it be slower? What do you guys think?
It'll be faster.
Faster, I think.
All of
And
you?
I
All of you
want to
say
look.
fast? Okay.
I want to
Yeah.
look forward by mentioning something that you said in the in back. So like in one of your, I don't know what year it was, but it was the relationship between Microsoft and OpenAI established.
2016.
Yeah.
And if we think about the fact that they're building all this on the Azure servers, and that they did not expect it to blow up, Microsoft is the reason that ChatGPT was able to be successful in the like. Can you imagine those phone calls? And that makes these past phone calls make a little bit more sense,
Yeah.
right? Like the phone calls of like, hey, so we did a thing. We didn't think it was going to blow up, but now we need a lot of server space.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, could Amazon with AWS have done the same thing though? I mean, AWS was out
They
before
could
Azure.
have, but OpenAI partnered with Microsoft, not
Right.
AWS
Uh,
or Google.
Oh, agree.
So, I mean, I
And I
think that was a big. This has just been awesome for Microsoft. I mean, it's proof of concept. It's like, yeah, ChatGPT, like you just said, Beth, ChatGPT, OpenAI, we make that work.
Here's why it'll go faster.
Okay.
What became clear in GPT-3 was that it was capable of what's called in-context learning, which is this emergent property of a very large neural network to do things that's not in its training weights, right? It figures, it has a reasoning capability. At some point during this year, it became clear that ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo was capable of exceeding the typical resonance capability of doing clinical reasoning in medical environment. Okay, so it has a reasoning capability, and AI is going to now apply that reasoning capability to the advancement of AI. And the other scaling issue is that, the recap of history that you did so beautifully, Brian, about OpenAI was a small cadre of researchers locked away and toiling in some labs. Well, now it's tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of engineers around the world equipped with enormous budgets, and they're all pursuing the same thing, which is let's advance that reasoning capability, not just content retrieval. We quibble about the idea that these large language models have training data that might be extractable and therefore expose content that was used in its training. That's kind of, in my mind, irrelevant to the bigger issue of these large neural networks mimicking the capabilities of a human brain, have reasoning capabilities, and that's what's going to advance. And we're going to be even more amazed at what happens when really, really super intelligent LLMs start to apply that reasoning in new ways we haven't thought of.
And that's a great nod to tomorrow's show, by the way. We'll just a quick point to tomorrow. We're going to be talking about Q-Star and what might turn out to be, maybe not, this next advancement. When Sam sat on the stage and said, I've had the opportunity to sit through 4 big aha moments. That's not what he said. I'm paraphrasing, right? But these big moments. And he said the most recent of which only happened 2 to 3 weeks ago at the time he was sitting on this stage. And people are speculating whether he was sitting in the room at the time that somebody said, hey, we have this model or this ability now to solve elementary level math where we were never able to do this before, and what that means. So that's going to be tomorrow, but that's maybe a great place to kind of like, we're 3 minutes over. So like last 3-4 minutes here, as we usually do, we wrap up around 35 minutes. I don't know why I keep saying we're over. It's a 35-minute show. Because you know why? Because if we call it a 35-minute show, it'll become a 40-minute show. So that's why we have to keep saying we're over to keep us honest. But here's my question to you guys to wrap it up. 1 year from now, when you log into ChatGPT specifically, not just OpenAI or maybe other things they have, when you log into ChatGPT, what will you be able to do? Is it video? Is it better images? Is it all the above? Is it some sort of next level step towards agents from where we are with custom GPTs? What do you guys think it looks like when you log in?
Video, voice, much better graphics, like agents. I think most of that stuff that we currently are experimenting with is going to go nuts.
I am going to put my wish list that I hope this is what happens. I want it to greet me and say, hey, so just checking, we had conversations yesterday and there were some things that you were going to go think about or work on. Are we starting from there? Or do you have something new? Right? Like I want it
Love
to
that.
be able to engage with time with me.
Sort of a
That's,
proactive
that's
conversation
possible.
rather
That's
than a
possible now.
reactive.
I've seen that in a number of things, including, for example, Mr. Reindeer, which is a GPT. So I think it's going to be largely around reasoning and agency, and they're related because in order to act on a general objective, the reasoning has to be there to say, okay, and maybe it'll think out loud, as we know we can add to a prompt. Hey, provide your reasoning and what you're thinking about as you go through these step by step. That's a really great prompting trick that I think the general public doesn't really know much about, but you can actually ask it to tell you what it's thinking or what its conclusions are as it makes these step by step arrangements. To get to agency, it's got to be able to make logical judgments about what are reasonable ways to get to the objective. So it's going to be very, very proficient agency.
Yeah.
I would say like Beth, wish list is I don't want to log in. I want to have my access. Someone's going to build the OS version, right? It's going to run on my ecosystem. And just like how you can AirPlay or move your what's on your desktop to your phone, to your TV screen, this could be an Apple thing or whatnot, but I want to see my agent and it just be there and it wakes up when I ask it to, and I don't have to log in or type anything ever again.
So
It's
unlike
nice
the
that it's
pin
proactive.
that you have to wear or the necklace you have to wear, in the year, AI will be wearing you. You are the accessory.
Good
You are-
morning, Junmi.
Hey,
Your
look.
television says good morning. What?
Hey, we've already got Alexa and Siri and Google Assistant and stuff like that. You just need to combine the two and just have it live on my and this could just be a piece of software. I mean, Netflix was able to do it. Just have a piece of software on all of my equipment that and it's all interconnected. And I'm running local versions. So there's
Junmi, based on what I see on your watch, you haven't voided yet this morning. Please go down to the bathroom.
Wow.
Hey,
Well-
guys, I just thought of something. What's the chances within a year that Microsoft is going to release a device similar to the Google Home or the Echo or whatever from Amazon, where it'll be you just talk to it, but it'll be a much more conversational kind of thing?
Oh,
I think
for
that
sure.
could be an interesting possibility.
For sure. I also think, I mean, this show was obviously about ChatGPT and that we talked a little bit about other competitors, but for sure, your echoes of next year, cannot imagine that they don't have a very capable and as powerful as like a GPT-4 in these devices at your home. I'll also be curious. I mean, it's not without, excuse me, it's not without, it wouldn't be crazy to think that OpenAI doesn't get into some sort of wearables. They might just go through Microsoft to do that, but they may also decide to be Apple and release their own, not just software, but also release their own devices and things. I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility.
Apple, they have the biggest war chest of all.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, listen.
So, and
again,
Apple is definitely going to decide to be Apple and probably have something in the next
in
year that we're all
2024.
talking about.
Yeah. In the next 365 days. I will say, because I didn't add mine to it, I agree with pretty much all of you on this. Aaron, the video, all of that better. All the stuff we can see today, I think integrated very easily, more powerful models. The one thing, it's sort of a wish list, but I think it's really close, is a built-in search bar for looking through my past previous history. There are Chrome
file
extensions
hierarchy
for me.
yes.
I just need OpenAI to build this into the damn software. Like I have 500 plus previous things. I cannot remember what I talked about. And it would be great, Beth. I love your wish list idea of, hey, did you remember? Like your Google will come up and say, like, remember this thing from 4 days ago? I would just like to be able to search it so I can remember what the hell I used this for, so I don't have to start all over again the next time I go to do a search. So that's where I'm at it. Either way, whatever it is, the next year promises to be very, very exciting when it comes to ChatGPT and all the ripple effects that come out from all the other sides of it with all the other products. So I can't wait to be talking about this. And
Skynet could actually launch and destroy the world. Just
there's always that.
We will be there day by day to watch through year 2.
We will.
Yeah. 100%. And I think, like from Top Gear, Jeremy Clarkson. And well, on that disappointing note, that's all we have for today. All right, guys, we'll end it there. Come back. We went over on this one. This is a fun topic, though. We'll see you tomorrow. Come back to learn about Q-Star. I have to do that. I'm sorry. It's the Spaceballs in me. I got to do it. Q-Star. See you guys.
Aloha.
Bye.